Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with all the members of Odd City. The band has just released a fantastic new record called Fission, and I'm super excited to talk to them all about it. Guys, I want to sincerely thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
Great.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you
Doing
for
great.
taking the time, man.
You're very welcome. What's going on in Detroit these days?
Summertime in Detroit, it's actually the good time to be here, right? It's not
Yeah,
cold. We got water, we got sun, we got, good stuff. So I think a lot of time outside.
Yeah, outside.
Yeah,
nice. And now you have the weight of having a record out. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I can only imagine you're feeling like that sweet relief that comes with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, and what, sorry?
Long time coming for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so the album is called Fission, and I've had the opportunity to listen to it at least 3 times through now, and it's gotten better with each listen. It's seriously fantastic. The thing
Thanks.
that I really want to kick off and talk about is what is it about? Is it a series of like individual stories, or is it sort of like an overarching, story throughout?
So in terms of lyrics, it's interesting because I'll kind of back engineer it a little bit
Sure, sure.
to tell the story of the record as a whole. Actually, Mike here did a really good job of actually laying out the songs. He was like had this whole storyline of why the songs needed to be laid out. Not that it's a concept record,
Sure.
but just the vibe of it. So that when you listen to the whole record, the ebbs and flows of it and the lyrics connecting was his idea solely.
Okay.
And we just signed on at that point. As a band, we had a lot of instrumentals that we were working with. So most of the songs, the lyrics took place afterwards, after the music was completed 100%. A few cases it was a little different, but mostly 100% music, besides the one interlude that we have. And
really a chunk of the lyrics were finished in the studio.
Oh, really?
Right up into the last minutes.
it's a little interesting because for the most part, Brett's actually the lyric writer over here,
Okay.
but also the drummer and not the singer. So
Okay. Just putting words in people's mouths.
yeah, and it's
Exactly.
kind of good because the concept around the lyrics, at least from my side, because I'm singing about half the time,
Right.
is I get to play with the tonality of the stuff because and then the heart and the soul of like the concept, what the meaning is of the lyrics, have mostly come from stories or experiences Brett's had, and then we take those and Mike and I make them our own at that point, and we add a little bit here, we change a little bit there, not distorting it, but adding like little bits of us into there, and then we get to play with the sonic side of it.
The how.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's where like the heart and soul comes through. Is like, even though they're not your stories, it's tough because people. I think nowadays it's difficult for people to really listen to lyrics. You know what I mean? They're all about how music makes them feel and how many sweet solos did it have. But it's nice to actually, when you get the time to go in and listen, like, what are these stories about? Like, I don't know these people, but you're learning about them through their music.
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
So,
and from a singing perspective too, when we go through that process, trying to make it a little bit our own when we're singing, because like I said, Cap here is singing about half the stuff, I'm singing about half the stuff, and we're backing each other up constantly. So to take that, the songs you remember, the lyrics you take away are the ones that have meaning to you, regardless of what the initial intent was. So to have us, come in and get this kind of layer of modification on top of the originality allows it to all be our own, if that makes sense. And
totally
then,
makes sense.
the heart comes out a little bit more then because we all feel that little bit of ownership to it.
I love that.
I'll say too that these guys do both do some modifications. They might do I'm a kind of a minimalist in terms of the amount of words. So there's usually not a third verse, so these guys are writing like a third verse. And we'll talk about it. We might go back and forth to where all three of us are kind of cool about it. I should say that Pavel, our other guitar player, he can't make the meeting, but he's also here, but he does guitar. So in terms of the lyrics and stuff, it's us three, but They both did a good job of kind of filling in gaps. They would add lyrics into bridges and things like that in terms of just structure. So, Mike did write most of the chorus on our song Split the Empire. I filled in lyrics on that one. The rest were all done, initiated by me, but these guys do have a fair amount, especially because they're singing it. And I want that connection. And so when they get to fill in, I don't care if it's 5%, 10%, 20%, it brings them into what's happening. It's not like it's just my thing. It's our thing. So that's how it works.
That's awesome. Now, how long do you think it took you guys to do this from start to finish? From the initial like, hey, let's make a record, to like the hey, we're submitting on Spotify right now.
It's funny because if you really look at it, it's a lot longer than you'd think. So I've only been in the band for what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Okay.
2 years, something like
2.5 years probably.
Yeah. But most of the songs originated much earlier than that and have gone through got several phases as instrumentals before they ever, kind of hit to where they are right now.
Sure.
And the act of from getting them from those instrumentals to having some degree of rough lyrics took a little bit of time. From the time we said, we're going to go put this thing together in a good quality recorded format, realistically, we did that quickly. The availability of the studio took a little bit of time, right? Because we're sneaking in when we all had the availability. And it's a busy studio where we recorded. There's a lot of bands that'll take it for an entire week or two at a time. Right. So, we're sneaking in on Saturday mornings and things along those lines to get stuff done when we could. But I think, from the time we said these songs are more or less done to the time that we had that album completed, realistically, we're talking a series of maybe a couple of months total.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But with 8 years of preamble to that, it was a lot of incompleteness.
Yeah. So just to give you a quick synopsis of the band.
Please.
I've been playing with Pavel, our other guitar player, for about 11 years, and different incantations of the same direction, different members, different ideas. Mike Cap here started on bass, probably about 3 years of us into this band.
It's about 10 years ago or something.
Yeah,
8 years ago,
9,
like
something like that. And we looked for a singer for forever. We did have some singers. We played some shows. We did recordings at various studios. We did demos. We did full tracks. We released some stuff on SoundCloud. We skipped the idea of having a singer at one point because we couldn't find one that fit us.
Yeah.
And we were just an instrumental band. Like, we opened up like hip hop shows, like
damn. Okay. I would not expect that
stuff. And then we just kept it going. And eventually, when we wanted to do some more demos and maybe talk about an album, Mike's like, I got this basement studio, which we're at right now. That, it's like pretty cool for being like a home deal. And he goes, I'll do some demos for you. Well, that became, I'm in your band now. Or we kind of asked him like, all right, man, you're in the band, right?
We spent a few months down here with him. Mike started adding really tasty licks to our songs and being like, why don't you do this? And Brett's like, why don't you just be in the band? And we're like, okay, fourth member. And the other thing too is, I saw Mike before he ever joined. I went out and met him for karaoke. And he absolutely crushed Warren G's Regulators. And I was like, all right, this dude's got skills. Like, I know he can get the microphone. Awesome. So I knew he would be the eventual singer guitar player in the band. It was just a matter of getting him in.
And you did,
man.
Puppets.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. So what I'm hearing is it's a long time coming. And so the relief must be just so much compared to just the lead up. That's fantastic. Now, it's kind of the obvious question, and I don't want you to feel like there's a rush on anything. But do you have plans for a follow-up? Like, do you have demos that are sitting around, or any plan? Yeah, I can only imagine there's a bunch.
We have stuff in various places right now. We actually have a couple songs, one that's 100% done, just about.
Oh, okay.
Aside from, in terms of just going to the studio, maybe we'll change stuff there, but I have like half songs done in terms of lyrics, maybe like 5.
Oh, all right.
We have probably 3 or 4 instrumentals that we could still work with, and then a bunch of little ideas. So we could turn a record if we got serious, and we are getting serious pretty quick in terms of having it ready for the studio.
Right.
I'm talking months if we buckled down. But I think the performance of that needs a little more time as well. So no rush on our end, but we're pretty far along in terms of how I see it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to shove too much out the door too quickly to a certain extent. I mean, we put a lot of heart and blood and sweat and tears into the first album.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take a little while because we're a bunch of relative nobodies, right? Like we don't drop something and it just the world hears it overnight.
Right.
And I just know it's gonna take a little time to get that out there. So I'm not in really any rush to get a new album out, maybe a little single here or there that we drop, you know, in the next little bit, just to make sure that we're keeping it fresh to a certain extent. But it's not because we don't have the material. I think it's more along the lines of that we want to make sure that what we show up with is at the same level as what we did with the first record.
Or better, you know, I mean, I think, you know, we're, like Brett said, we have a catalog of old songs, but I think even with the first record, we really wanted to look at like, okay, what's our best foot forward? What are the songs that we can take and really sculpt into something that's good, you know? And that was kind of how we came up with the 6 songs, 7 songs for the first record. And with the new one, you know, some of it is new stuff Brett's been writing really on his own, which is awesome. And some of it, like he said, is stuff we're going to pull back from the past. And some of it's a little bit of a mix of both. But, you know, I think we're all pretty excited to do another record. But like Mike said, we want to make sure we stay true to what we did the first time, which was, you know, put the passion in so it turns out right and it turns out good. And, you know, we really want to try to get, I think, better every time. I mean, that's my goal in life, right? So
I fully agree. No, you should let it breathe. You've spent so much time and so much effort on it. Like following it up is not necessarily pointless so quickly, but yeah, you need to let people hear it. It'll get shared around, and like, that's the goal. You put out too much, then people feel overwhelmed. So,
right,
my experience at least.
Yeah, and we're not going anywhere. So
yeah, you're doing it, and yeah, the more you do, it's like you don't want it to feel like a job at the same time. Like you still want to have fun and do your own thing.
Exactly.
Fully understand. Now, you guys, like, it's obviously a rock-based record. Do you have, or have you found that your personal preferences have any, not necessarily like a direct influence, but like any difference in the music that you're making? Like if one person listens to this music, like you want to go that direction.
Yeah. I don't think any one of us goes home when we leave practice and listens to anything even close to anybody else.
Really?
We all like, you know,
we definitely have tasted overlap, but
Yeah.
they're so varying too.
yeah,
Okay.
like you can hear in the sound of the record where that middling is, right? Like where we kind of find our passion in playing.
Sure.
But when it comes to listening, I think, you know, and the influences that come in, I mean, I am exceptionally, you know, hip hop driven a lot of times, and
Okay.
and more, you know, honestly, more older rock stuff, like even old, like I'm freaking old, so like new metal and older,
Sure.
right? Like Guns N' Roses is one of my favorite bands. You're gonna see stuff like that as opposed to, you know, Brett, who listens to a lot more, you know, hardcore stuff
And modern.
Yeah, and modern metal, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I
don't
listen to a
know.
lot of brutal stuff, but and I've noticed that too, which is interesting coming into like more of a rock thing. You know, picking up on, like, I know a lot of heavy music has good mantras in terms of their lyrics. They have good kind of motifs in their lyrics where they pick a thing and you know, the lyric is encapsulated in that world, whether it's about the ocean or whatever, you know, which we have kind of like that. So some of that goes in there, but I don't know. I also listen to bands like Grizzly Bear, or, you know, some electronic stuff, old, you know, classic rock. I think Mike's probably got the most interesting. I don't even know if it's eclectic. Like, we're all pretty eclectic, but like, what's your favorite band?
Oh, well, Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum is probably my favorite band.
Never heard of
They're
them.
they're not still together, but
Yeah.
they put out like 4 records and it's just top notch. But it's super weird. I like weird stuff, you know. That's
Nice. I'm
So
gonna
we-
check them out. I also love weird stuff.
they're very, very, very cool. They're like a band that makes a lot of their own instruments, so you just hear things you
Okay.
can't really hear anywhere else, and it's
Sure.
just mind blowing. But they're sick at what they do.
Are those the
Oh,
guys
yeah.
that were at Showbiz Pizza when I was growing up?
So actually, we just went to see like a punk show in Detroit here too, because Mike S here is really into like what would you call it, like 90s.
Yeah, I was a
Punk rock.
punk ska guy, you know, third
Okay.
wave.
Who'd you see?
Is that the No Effects?
It was, yeah, we went and saw No Effects.
Oh. Legend.
And Frank Turner.
Legends, one of
and
the
it
best
was-
ever.
Yeah,
Oh.
and it was, you know, it's always amazing to see somebody like, I was sitting there and I'm like, all right, the dude that's, you know, lead in the band Fat Mike is like 56 years old.
Right.
And he is prancing around on stage in a leather mini skirt and
Still
is
doing it.
absolutely killing it. And I want to
Yeah.
be this guy, right? Like, and it's just like, and you realize that, and those guys have been together since 1984
Yeah.
with the original
Like-
lineup, and nobody's left it. And it's like that's the dream.
That's
right?
they're pretty much
Seriously.
my hero band. They're like our, and personally, they're like the band I look up to probably more than anybody. Also, because they did so much on their own. They made their own label. They
Right.
put out their own records. They, you know, they just did it their way, and you can tell in the music is what they want to do. You know.
Totally. No, they found their thing, and they've obviously have a loyal fan base. That is the
Oh,
dream
yeah.
right there. They're never gonna sell out arenas, but they're gonna have these super.
they'll never
intimate
need to.
shows. No, we'll never need. No, they got
Yep.
it all going on.
Yep.
Love that. Wow. Back to your guys' music. Based
Yeah.
off- No, you. Well, I actually did want to say something. It is so much better for you to have differing tastes in music than we all listen to the same bands, because then you bring the elements that are not necessarily mainstream, but things that are approachable to, like, you know, new listeners. Like, you're not going to go all out in one direction, but you're going to take those things and put them in here. And that's why I really like this record, is it doesn't stick to one thing. Like, sure,
Thank
it's
you.
rock, but there's elements of everything in there. And
Yeah.
I agree,
yeah,
because I hear
yeah.
so many bands that are, and I'll be honest, they're probably more naturally talented than a lot of people.
Yeah.
Us included, but I see a lot of box checking.
Yep.
And I don't believe it. I don't think that's your life. And you didn't live in 1970.
sure.
And I'm, you know, and you're presenting in a way that someone did in 1970 or whatever it is. And I think you can bring a lot of that in a very interesting way, but if you just check the box and package it that way, it's just,
well,
the quality might be there, but it's just, is it believable? Is that your life? You know,
There's no love
this
behind
is our
it.
life.
There's no
I
passion.
believe I hear my life. I hear his life in the
Yep.
songs. We're not the, you know, maybe people don't think we're the best band ever, but I feel good about it in terms of like, that's our life. You
Yeah,
know what I
and-
mean?
It's real.
like
Totally.
I live life kind of in the gray area a little bit, right? So
Oh, sorry.
there's, if you ever go to an extreme on any one side, you're probably missing something, right?
Mhm.
True.
And so there's a difference between production and being overproduced. There's a difference between having pop sensibilities and being a pop artist, right? Like there are places that you can go. Like, well, Cap and I like to one of our favorite bands ever is the freaking Beatles, right? Like, and
For sure.
you know, so when we start to do vocal harmonies, the first thing we do is fall back to John and Paul, right?
Always.
Like, who
Try.
are the gods of it, right? But then, you know, and so when you kind of take all those different things into play, it's like I never discount anything I'm hearing, even if it ain't for me. At the same time, I know where, like, I like to know where the kind of bouncy limits are on the outer sides, right? Like, we don't want to be just the fringe band, because sure, we'll attract some people, but that's not sustainable. And frankly, it's not interesting over time. You know,
Sure.
shock music is interesting the first throw, and then the second time through, you kind of get done with it. It
Got
doesn't,
it.
you
Yeah,
know.
man, you're trying to build something for the long run here. You're trying to make yourselves happy. I always go
Exactly.
back to, you're the ones putting the time, the effort, and the money into making this music and putting it all
yeah.
together. Like if you're not happy with it and you feel fake and like any amount of a sellout at the end of the day, then what was the point of doing it in the first place?
Yeah.
So,
And you know, sometimes it's just you know, what's interesting is that we took so long to put ourselves out there in terms of like this record.
Yeah.
And I find it so beneficial because I see younger artists, and like I say, probably more talented than us, and they're putting themselves out early and they're checking the boxes. And I think given time, they'll get away from that. And I'm not saying we wrote the perfect record. I'm just saying that I just know moving forward in my life, I'm not going to look back at this as like a kind of a stepping stone off to the side. It feels like, okay, that is our first record.
sure.
Yeah, we wanted to make something we could be proud of. And I mean, I appreciate that you said that you heard a variety of sounds, because I think that's something that's really important to the whole band. And I think you nailed it too in saying like, you kind of got to set something up for the long term, you know, like if you box yourself into like 7 songs that are all kind of the same thing and that's just what you do. I mean, maybe it's an awesome record, but then if you change and you do something really different for your next record, you're pretty much losing all those first fans because they want to do what you did. And if you know, so I think that was important for us to not get, you know, to have a little bit of fingers out everywhere, so we have room to explore in the future.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
We set the table to let people know that we're going to do what we want.
Right.
Well,
Right.
I think the most important story about this album is that the genesis of this album was not to release this album to the world. The genesis of this album was, hey, what are we doing in this band? And
Okay.
the answer was kind of, we want to make something that we're proud of, right? We want to make something that I can hand to my mom or hand to any random person and say, like, I feel good about what we did. I want to listen to this stuff ourselves. And frankly, like the fact that when it all got put together and we listened to it, we kind of started to get, you know, larger aspirations because it actually exceeded our own expectations.
Right.
And I think, you know, the goal was never necessarily like, let's be rock stars. Let's get this thing out there in front of everybody. The goal was, let's put something that on our shelf that we can be proud of, that when we're 70 years old and grandkids are bouncing around, we can pop in and be like, hey, that's me, right?
That is what it's all about.
You know, so,
Like the odds of someone being the next, like, I don't know, I'm just pulling a name out, like Green Day or something like that, like selling out arenas all over the world and having millions of fans. It's smaller than 0.0001% chance. Like,
well, they didn't do it by playing like the weird game or something, you know, they just did their thing.
Right. It really comes down to like, I hope that I have something that I can show my grandkids and be proud of, instead of saying, well, I kind of went this way because I was pressured to go this way and here's my music and you're not happy about it.
And to add it a little bit to like what you're saying too, I think part of the reason why it ended up better than we ever expected to was working with Chuck Alkazian at Pearl Stone. I mean, he was just an awesome producer and, you know, knew how to get the best out of us. And I think working with him was just a great experience that, you know, it made the record what it was, right? It wouldn't have been the same without him and his influence in his studio. But that was just a great experience. And I really think that sort of, you know, also his excitement about it sort of let us know, like, hey, maybe other people might like this, you know?
Yeah, he didn't listen to our demos, and he thought we were just like a really simple
some just band off the street, whatever.
And he's like, oh, we need a bigger budget.
That's funny.
You're like, didn't you listen to the demos? He's like, oh, like he didn't listen to the demos.
That's all right.
Like 5 time signature changes per song and stuff like that, you know.
He's a good guy to have around, that's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, he was great.
Got a couple more for you. I want to know, are you guys touring, or do you have any shows planned that you'd like to shout out, or is that something that's in the works?
So we've got a couple of tentative shows towards the end of August, early September.
Nice.
Believe it or not, like, hey, well, you know, COVID kind of killed the entire live music scene.
Yep.
Now everybody is trying to book up every venue, and it's been ridiculously difficult. Like, if we want to play a dive bar, there's a 3-month wait at this point, you know, and it's really crazy to see how packed the venues are now that they're open again. So
at least in this area,
which is a good thing, but yeah, we're looking at mostly local shows right now, sticking around the Michigan area. But we want to get a couple shows in this summer.
And to
kinda
be
need
fair, Detroit's a good rock city. So
I mean-
though there are a lot of rock venues, there are a lot of bands as well. And
Sure.
so it's a tight market from that. Like if we were in like Tulsa or something, I'm sure we'd be playing all, every, so.
Yeah, a lot of the regular bands that have been doing this for a while, I've noticed, and I've gone to their shows. They've already been lined up. So we'll
Sure.
get some. What do we got? One in September.
August and September.
August and September. We got.
Oh, yeah.
We'll probably get all that stuff up on our website
and I
as
don't
soon as
think-
the dates are solidified.
I think like one of the venues
Perfect.
got sold or like.
Yeah, we actually had.
Oh, geez, that's another major problem.
Yeah.
Who's alive anymore as far as music bands?
Right.
We'll get there.
Go get there. Hell yeah. Well, I've got one more for you guys. And really the question is for the person that is going to discover you from this, and for the person that's going to listen to your guys' music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them?
I
That's a good
mean,
one.
yeah. The simple and most generically obvious is thank you, because to be perfectly honest, like everybody says it, but it really does matter. Like when somebody says, I love nothing more than like, hey, listen to it. That was pretty cool. I'm elated.
Just
right?
made my day.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't care if you paid for it. I don't care if you pirated it. I don't care what you did. You liked it. That we did our job, right? Like, so I think from a general perspective, it's like, hey man, if you dig it, just tell us. Nothing more than that. I would love to get, if you didn't like it, that's okay too, man. Like actually tell us. I don't care, right? Like, but some degree of feedback's always the best thing in the world. At least from my side, it's that validation, the external validation, because I can internally validate myself all day.
That's for sure.
For me, it's I would just say obviously the thank you, and also I would just say listen to the whole record, only because like we've been saying, I don't think you're gonna get one flavor from the first song.
If you don't like the first track, just keep going.
Yeah, just hit next.
But
Love it by the end.
I think that you can at least appreciate the journey of the whole album. And for me, I really wanted to make this record just because I want to like try and break my drum set in front of my friends and family, like after they hear the record, because if we put the record out first and the songs, then you come see us, and then I can like just stomp the stage.
Yeah,
like that's my thing. So
yeah, he's the
He's an
energy
animal.
man on stage, man. If
Sweet.
anybody is in Detroit and wants to come see us, you're not going to be disappointed watching Brett play.
That's what I like to hear.
Mike?
Cool.
Oh, I'm old. I would just say rock on, man.
There you go. I think that's a perfect answer as well. There's no wrong answer, but honestly, I think I just heard the right answers. It's just I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time. This has been a fantastic conversation.
And thank you
Also-
for listening and enjoying the album. That truly that means everything to us.
Yeah.
So
You're very
thank you.
welcome. I'd love to plug your music for you one more time. The record is called Fission. We're going to have links so that people can listen and share and follow along. Send it to anyone who likes rock music. They're going to love it. And just once again, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to hear more, but take your time with it. Seriously.
We will.
Man,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Man,
Awesome.
thanks for your time. Thanks for the interview.
You're very welcome. Have a great rest of your night. Hope to speak soon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.